Here's what you need. Stop. Copy everything that I do. Plain and simple, copy everything that I do. So we are writing the linear function, which if you do not know how to write the function, you are going to do poorly on this test. The test has now gotten bumped back to the 17th, which is next Wednesday for you guys. Okay, the test has gotten bumped back till next Wednesday because of missing some days. So first off, linear function. That means there's going to be a constant rate. This is going down by 4. Questions there. This is going up by 2. So a couple things that we need to know. Our slope is y divided by x. But I want to give you that next step. It's really, as you go up in math, it's delta y, which is the change in y divided by the change in x. How do I find the change? 5 minus 9 is negative 4. 7 minus 5 is 2. So I am physically subtracting. I'm finding the difference. Everybody with me? So now I have my division of negative 4 divided by 5. Wow, that's not right. Negative 4 divided by 2, which gives me a slope of negative 2. Give me a thumbs up if you got negative 2. If you did not, you need to make sure that you understand how you're finding that constant rate. Now, this is where I expect you all to really stink it up. What value has to be 0 in order for us to find the y-intercept? Go ahead. X. X.
No. It just started doing whatever it's doing.
I'm nice in my old room. So x has to be 0. So we have a problem. It doesn't go far enough back. So I'm going to extend this graph. I know that this needs to be negative 4. This needs to be negative 4. This needs to be negative 4. Positive 2. Positive 2. Positive 2. Okay? Because it's constant. It's staying the same. So in order to find x being 0, I'm going backwards now. So this is 3. This is 1. This is negative 1. Have I lost anybody there? So instead of subtracting 4, I'm adding 4. So this is 13. This is 17. This is 21. Uh-oh. Do we have an x is 0? No, but we know 0 is halfway between negative 1 and 1. Yes, it's exactly halfway between negative 1 and 1. What's exactly halfway between 21 and 17? I should see everybody's hand. We should all know what's halfway between 21 and 17. Tippy. 19. So I now have a y-intercept. Is there anybody who's confused on how I went backwards to find those numbers? Let's make sure this works. So it said I asked you to write a function. So the function is f of x, because that's really taking the place of y, equals negative 2x plus 19. That right there is the function. How can I make sure that I've done this correctly? Well, we've got, let's try this x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus 19 is 17. Let's try 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 19 is 13. I could keep checking these. Guess what? It works. Any questions on how I got this function now? If you write the function as y equals negative 2x plus 19, are you wrong? No. You're not wrong, but if it's asking for the function, let's keep it in function form. Wrigley, you all right? Okay. So now we're going here. Using your function, find f of 35. So this is saying the function of 35. When x is 35, what's my y? So this is saying, okay, here's my y. F of 35 is my y, but what's happening? Well, I'm substituting in 35 for x, because this is f of x. So now I have, okay, when I input 35, what do I output? When I input 35, what do I output? I output negative 51. Questions? Everything I have on this board you should have because you're getting credit for simply having it on your paper. Questions, concerns. Like this should be a nice grade booster. It should be a nice day back from some snow days. All you had to do was listen and write it down. Questions? Those of you watching on the computer, you're going to turn this into whoever my sub is. That way I can give you credit. Then you're going to get out your packets, just like you're going to get out your packets. You're going to take a little bit of notes. You're going to do the problems that I tell you to do, and then you're going to pause me. And the sub's going to say, okay, finish watching your video, and then you're going to watch the video. So, yay! I hate technology. So, not quite sure if this is going to work, but if you're still watching the video, that means I did something right. Hooray! If not, there's going to be like 4 videos that you have to watch. Ugh. Okay. So, if you watch the videos, which is a big if because most of you don't, you should have learned 2 things from lesson 4. And the first thing that we're talking about is discrete functions. Discrete functions. No partial amounts. That is the big thing with discrete functions. There are no partial amounts. What that means is if we're talking about babies being born, amount of tacos being made. If you remember way back when we were talking about those systems and I said I was opening up a food truck and we had whatever, pancakes and waffles. And I said, if I go into a shop and say, can I have 2.37592 parts of a waffle? They're going to be like, no, you can have 2 waffles or 3 waffles, right? That's a discrete function. I'm not going to say, okay, I can take 32.4 kids on a field trip. Like that, you can't cut kids in half. No matter how much you might want to, sickos, you can't do it. Yeah, I see, you know. Wrigley's laughing and smiling now. It's a little creepy. Wrigley, stop it. Okay? Can't have 0.4 of a kiddo. So that would be considered a discrete function. 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kid, 4 kid, not 1.5 kids. When you let me try this again. When you graph discrete functions, this is the key. Discrete functions do not, listen again, they do not form a line. They can look like they would form a line, but you cannot connect the dots. I can absolutely have a point at 1, 1. I can have a point at 2, 1. I can have a point at 3, 1. Yes, does that appear to be linear? Certainly. But if it's discrete and I connect the dots, can I have half of a something? No. Discrete means there are no decimals, there are no fractions. So it has to stay just as the points. And then, again, mathematicians, they're very, very good on their verbiage, which means they can really come up with some great words to help describe. The next one that we're going to describe is not discrete. And that's how they describe it. Not discrete means can have decimals and fractions. If it is not discrete, you can connect your points because everywhere is a solution. Some examples of things that are not discrete: miles per hour. It doesn't say that I can only go 1 mile, then 2 miles. If I'm driving, I can drive 0.275 miles and stop. Right? Everybody with me still? Okay. Questions on discrete and not discrete. Questions on how to create an equation. Go ahead and open to page S. I want to say it's 26, but I'm not going to lie, I have no idea. I want it. Oh, that's 24. I was really close. Oh, S24. So the problems you are working now on in groups. Circle number 1. Number 3. And put a star next to number 4. Number 4 is a little bit tricky. For some reason, I made copies of 2 sets of number 4s. So skip the second set of number 4. And then go to page S, I want to say 31, but I, again, am making stuff up, so I have no idea. I was close. No, I wasn't. I lied. S30. Good Lord. S36. You are doing numbers 1, number 2, numbers 4, 5, and 6. For 4, 5, and 6, I would highly suggest making sure that you remember from last Wednesday the 3 ways that we figured out whether something was a function. Whether the x's had multiple x's, whether there was multiple arrows coming from the same number, or whether it passed the vertical line test. Everybody with me? Okay, so begin. Okay, so if you have not yet started with your group, you can get in a group, you can work, and then you need to pause me because I'm going to go over the answers. So get with your group and pause me now. The rest of you, here we go, number 1. So in order to do this, it's the change in the y divided by the change in the x. Could you do 1971 divided by 5 4/10? Yeah, but just to make sure, subtract, you get 3 65/100 x. So y equals 303 and 600. Try this again. Y equals 3 65/100 x. Questions on number 1? Give me a thumbs up if we got that one correct. You absolutely need to know how to write equations. 4, letter B. Yeah, the restrictions, you cannot have negative numbers of miles and you can't have negative dollars. So they can't be negative. Both x and y can't be negative. It's not discrete. Immediately you should know it's not discrete simply because there's decimals. As soon as there's decimals, it is not discrete. Discrete will always be whole numbers and can only be whole numbers. When it talks about assigning a number, that means you're substituting it in. So I've substituted 20 in for x. That gives me $73. So now I've got 73 assigned to 20, which means 20 gallons of gas are purchased. It costs $73. Questions on number 1. You need to know how to do these. Feeling all right with number 1? Thumbs up. Okay. Those of you who tried to do number 2, don't. I told you not to, so don't. Number 3, I subtracted 88, 41, got 47. 4 minus 3 is 1, which is how I got y equals 47x. Thumbs up if we got that equation. Letter B, again. So why do they both have to be positive? Because you can't have negative hours. You can't have negative miles driven. Oh, I'm driving backwards. That's a negative mile. No, it's still a mile. Like, that's silly. Stop it. Is it discrete? So if I'm looking at this, you're like, oh, they're all whole numbers. It's got to be discrete. Again, I'm able to drive a quarter of a mile. So that's 0.25 or 1/4. That's a fraction. That makes it not discrete. Question still. So again, what number assigns when it's 8? 47 times 8 gives me 376. That means if I drive for 8 hours, I drive 376 miles. E is the opposite. So now we're saying, hey, I've driven 500 miles. How long did it take? Approximately 10 6/10. Questions on 1, 3, or 4? Was this number 3 or 4? Oh, well then you might have questions on number 4. Because I haven't done it yet. Okay, this one's a little bit tricky. It doesn't really give you a starting place. Because it doesn't, this is where we're starting, which means our x value is 0 at noon. How can I check that? By substituting it in. If you put 12 in here, you should be like, no, this isn't working at all. But this is our 0 place. This is where we're starting this whole table from. Does it work? Absolutely. So when I substitute everything in, from 12, this is 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours from my 0 time. Questions? So if you're like, man, this isn't working, try your first thing to be at 0. Letter B, are there any restrictions? Yeah. X, my time can't be negative. Y can be. My temperature can absolutely be a negative, just my inputs can't be negative. We can't have negative hours. Everybody with me? Does that make sense for restrictions? Notice how you have to talk about both the X and the Y, the input and the output. Is it discrete? No, because we could have 1.25 hours or even negative like 37.5 degrees. Every time that I get my temperature checked in the morning, it's between 96.9 and 97.3. So it doesn't have to be a whole number. Talking about plugging things in, give you 83 and 75/100 degrees. 83.75 degrees. And letter E, is that reasonable to be negative what? Like negative, like, or 160 out later? Oh, there it is, negative 160. No, the temperature's not going to be negative 160, even though today it might feel like it. It's not. That's absurd. It even says that's absurd, which is awesome. I love that word. Absurd. Questions? Anybody on lesson 4 with questions? Let's go to lesson 5, kiddos and kidettes. Lesson 5. Your graph shows you your X's and your Y's. Okay? So for this case, my miles per hour or miles per minute, Y divided by X, you physically need to divide 1/2 by 8. That's how I'm getting my Y equals 1/16 X. The group in the back said, Mr. H, what's my Y-intercept? Okay, on your mark, get set. My timer's still at 0. Have I gone anywhere? No, if the time hasn't started for me to start moving, I'm still where I'm starting at. So there's 0 miles going for 0 minutes, which is why I get Y equals 1/16 X. Questions here, it's linear because it says constant rate. Questions on number 1 so far. Letter C, wrong way. Letter C, we're substituting in 24. That lets him walk 1.5 miles. Okay, thumbs up if we got that. Letter D, he's walking 0.75 miles or 3/4 of a mile. Letter E, he's walking 1 mile in 16 minutes. Questions on through E. Then it asks you to graph it. You should absolutely notice that it's linear. Okay? Notice how they're connecting the points because it's not discrete. I can walk like 0.2 miles, right? So this is fine. That's why we connect it, because it's not discrete. Yes, it's a line. Great. Connect the points. What is the equation of the line? It's still Y equals 1/16 X. The equation you found stays the same. We did do number 2. My suggestion when you do number 2 or anything like this where it has anything that's not just X, put it in parentheses. So when I would do something to the third, I would put in 0 in parentheses, then to the third. I'd put in 5/10 to the third in parentheses. Make sure your numbers match up. Questions there. Plot the ordered pair. I'm sorry, maybe I've gone too fast. Everybody good with these numbers? Plot the ordered pairs. If you look, it's appearing to go up. Okay? It's appearing to go up. Really, an X to the third is going to look like this, and then it would actually make a little S shape, but you don't know the negatives yet, so that's fine. So is it linear? Absolutely not. Remember, linear functions have to keep X by itself. There are no exponents with the X. X has to be in the numerator. It can't be in the denominator. Letter D. So consider the function that assigns for volume. So volume of a cube is a side to the third power. So if a cube all has the same sides, 3 to the third power gives me 27. Do you think this graph will look like this? Absolutely. It's the same thing. It's taking V, replacing it with Y, S replacing it with X. It's the same equation. Just because the letters are different doesn't mean that it's a new equation. And then use that same equation to figure out what the volume is. Well, it's 27. The volume is 27. Questions so far? Everybody doing pretty well on these so far? I feel like this is, I don't want to say it's basic, but we're making some pretty good progress on this. We did not do number 3. We absolutely did numbers 4, 5, and 6. Vertical line test. Intersects once. Intersects twice. Not a function. That's it. It intersects 2 points that are on that same vertical line. Therefore, it is not a function. Quickly, do 5 and 6 if you haven't done them. Like, quickly, take a look. See if 5 and 6 are functions. Immediately, number 5. Certainly not a function, because at 2 different places, it's intersecting 2 different points. Right here at 2, there's 2 X values. Right here at 5, there's 2 X values. Not a function. And for number 6, what do we think?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's going to be a function because each x value has its own point, not 2 points, its own individual point. You have a test that is now on February 17th. That is next Wednesday. That is a week from today. So on the 19th, no, not the 19th. Hold on, I'm sorry. It's the 10th. On the 12th, we have our last 2 lessons that we're going to go over, similar to what we're doing now. We don't have school that following Monday. Tuesday's a B day. Wednesday, when you come back, is a test. Great job. Maybe? Good job, guys. Hopefully you were good for the sub.